Three, two, one. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Haji Show. Today, we are lucky to have Shep Harris, the mayor of Golden Valley, and we have a lot to talk about. But because of timing, and the interview is going to be very short, so we gotta make it simple. I know he's got other engagements that he has to attend to, and we can't stay for long. But hopefully, next time, if you're watching us, we can continue on this great conversation about our community, our neighbors, and our friends, and people that we have a lot in common with. Welcome, Shep Harris, to Mayor Shep Harris to the Haji Show.
Thank you, Haji. It's a pleasure. It's an honor to be on your show. And how do you say Mahadsanid for inviting me on?
Thank you, sir. Very quickly, I know, like I said, I have mentioned that we are short on time, so we're gonna make this quick with you. I wanted to talk to you about, the Somali American and the Jewish American community. Where do you see us coming from, and what do we have in common here in Minnesota?
Well, thank you. And just so you know, I'm for those who don't know, I am a member of the Jewish community here in the Twin Cities here in Minnesota. And I'm sorry I have to go so soon because, as you can see behind me, it's the Jewish holiday of Sukkot, which reminds us of the time of when the Israelites were escaping from Egypt and heading toward the promised land of Israel. And they used to dwell in these booths, if you will, these huts that we call a sukkah. And so we celebrate this time of year the fall harvest, and the remind us of that. But what's important, and to relate to your question, is that it reminds us of the fragility of life, the importance of partnerships, the importance that we are not alone when it comes to, sadly, when it comes to being enslaved, when it comes to discrimination and bias and prejudice. That basically in the Jewish community, we have a saying that we say every year during Passover, which is in the spring, that no one is truly free until everyone is free. And so we like to think that in that sense, it's unfortunate that not only the Jewish community, but even more so the Somali community has been a target of a lot of prejudice and hatred in recent years here in the United States, and particularly here in Minnesota. And so I've had the honor, for those who don't know, I've met Haji past few years working with members of the Somali community up at the state capitol. My job as mayor is not full-time, not like the Minneapolis or St. Paul mayor. So I have a regular job, and that's being a lobbyist up at the state capitol. And so I've actually done some work with organizations within the Somali community, not just in the metro area, but even for like Haji when he was up in St. Cloud. And I got to realize that through my work with the Somali community, and also the work that I've done in the past with the Jewish community, that there's definitely opportunities for partnership. There's opportunities for basically to stand up with each other, not just for each other, but with each other, to fend off this prejudice and this hatred. But beyond that, there's positive opportunities, both very entrepreneurial communities to work together and write a new positive story for the future of Minnesota. So right now, it's a struggle between the two communities. I think some of that, I think the fact is that the Jewish community came here as immigrants over 100 years ago and is established. And so, but we need to look back in time and realize and think about the struggles that we had as immigrants and see what we can do to work more closely with the Somali community. And that unfortunately that lack of strength between the two communities has flared up in the politics, and we got to work better together at that.
Is it time to heal, you think, now, since the politics is part of that? Is it done? Moving forward, is it time to heal, moving together as a community and opening up communication and us talking to everyone in our neighborhood? Do we have something in common that we need to move to, and a clear direction that we need to head to?
We have to. You're absolutely right. It's frankly, it's always a time for healing. We have to. We have no choice. Either we can continue down the path that we've collectively chosen, live in our own worlds, our own communities, our own bubbles, and ignore others at a very costly price of not understanding each other and learning stereotypes that aren't true. um, or we can work closer together. And so I am happy that, up until COVID started, and if it weren't for COVID, I know I'd be in your car right now, driving and talking about this. But up until COVID happened earlier this spring, there were efforts that were being put together to build stronger relationships between the Jewish community and the Somali community. There were organizations in the Somali community working with organizations in the Jewish community that were going to be creating arts opportunities. They were going to be creating dialogue. One example is something I was working with Mohammed Farah of Kajog. We were going to actually have some leadership in both communities come together and break bread, if you will, during a Passover Seder, and then also an iftar dinner during Ramadan. But as we heard, nature got in the way with COVID, and so that's all been canceled. So we're hoping activities like that can happen again. That's on the big scale, but also I'm going to say, and look, Haji, you and I have had many conversations about this. There is a struggle, and it's a struggle to build. We need to build a relationship between Representative Ilhan Omar and the Jewish community. There have been some efforts in the past, but it's been very difficult. And I'd like to think in terms of healing, now is the time to do that, because we have, and I'm not going to be shy about it, we have a president in our country who wants us to be at odds with each other, who wants us to be divided. And so we need to work even harder together, whether that's you and I or Representative Omar and members of the Jewish community, to try to work better together and have that dialogue.
And I think that's important. I think, I think there are no permanent enemies in politics. As you know, you are a politician, you are a mayor, and people they come around something that they have in common. And right now, the Jewish community has been at the receiving end throughout hundreds of years of hate and prejudice and discrimination, and even leading up to the time when what happened historically to the Jewish community in many parts of Europe. And moving on here, we have a new immigrants group that has recently come to the state of Minnesota and settled in many places. And also right now, they are also at the receiving end of some of this, including Ilhan Omar herself. So, you make a very important point that at the end, we do need to come around the idea that our struggles and our fights are the same, and that we share a space, and that in that boundary and that space, we need to be able to work together and respect each other at the end of the day. I think that's a very powerful point that you've made. In regards to now and how best we can come around to the idea of knowing that we share something, and especially space, so we all cannot avoid each other, so we are sharing space, we are together, we are in many places. What would be an ideal thing for you to see moving on into the future between the Somali American community and the Jewish community here in Minnesota?
Well, for starters, I think there's opportunities. There's many examples, but one that comes to my mind is, okay, so I've been to the Somali Independence Day celebrations, and Independence Week here in the Twin Cities, and so there's an opportunity for the Jewish community to step up and, in a sense, celebrate, because I'm willing to bet, Haji, that a lot of I didn't even know this until I was told about it, that when Somalia declared its independence, a handful of decades ago, Israel was one of the first countries to recognize Somali's independence as an official country, and so that in itself tells me, as someone who's Jewish, is that we need to show up at these celebrations and celebrate together, not just stand together when it's in times of crisis, but stand together in times of celebration. So we need to come to that celebration. Obviously, it's a little challenging right now, but now's the time to start building and preparing for when we will be back together and we can do that. And likewise, the Jewish community does, we do the same thing. We have an Israel independence celebration every year in May. And what a great opportunity! And we actually have had members of the Somali community. I've been at the celebrations, and we've had members of the community come. Not many, a few, but there's an opportunity right there just to learn about each other's cultures. And likewise, whether it's iftar dinners or hosting Passover Seder meals together, there's opportunities to learn about each other's cultures and each other's faiths. And from there we're going to realize there are so many similarities, and from that, building that trust in their relationships is going to then create business opportunities or create community relationships where we're just stronger unified. So there's a couple examples right there.
That's excellent point that you've made in regards to that, and also, which is more again, what are the Jewish community doing to get out the vote? This is a very important election for all of us. Like I said, we are a community that is really, by name and by resemblance and by nationality and by ancestry, both the Jewish and the Muslim and Somali, and also even East African and African community have been at the receiving end of some of this hate. So why is this? What are you doing, or what are the communities you come from doing in getting out the vote, and how best can you advise some of these communities also to get out on board and make sure that they vote in this election?
Yeah, great question. Well, historically, the Jewish community has been, and when I say historically, I mean like in the past 50 to 100 years, historically, the Jewish community has been more Democrat than Republican. And frankly, that's because the Democrats have stood up for the individual rights of all, not just the individual rights of some. But there's definitely Jewish Republicans, but probably more Democrats. But what you've got is you've got different coalitions, political organizations within the Jewish community there's a Republican Jewish coalition, and there's also there's Minnesota Jews for Joe Biden. And there's also the Jewish Democrat Council of America. And so what we're doing is, we're mobilizing, and we're doing phone banking, we're doing social media. And historically, I think this is a good thing. And I do think that if any community has the potential to do the same thing, it's definitely the Somali community, is that it's been ingrained in the Jewish community that you need to vote. You need to be engaged in citizenship activities. It's not just voting is like the basic. Going beyond voting, like getting involved, running for office. And so I'm thrilled to see people like Mahmoud Noor and Hodan Hassan and Representative Omar, and see others who are running for office at the local and state legislature and national level. We need more of that. And so, yes, I'm getting off track here a little bit, but what I would just say is the key is to mobilize, it's to organize, and to just really, it almost becomes part of the culture. It's like an expectation. The joke in the Jewish community is, you want your kids to grow up, like 2 generations ago, it was, I want my kids to either be a lawyer or a doctor or an accountant, professionals. And not that there's anything wrong with being a mechanic or being an electrician. Right. Basically, it's to be successful. And what's also baked into the expectations of the Jewish community is that you are going to vote. And so we have for the small size, the population of the Jewish community nationally, we turn out high numbers, and we are politically active. We roll up our sleeves. Despite some of the stereotypes that Jews have lots of money, we're just like any other community, but we choose to prioritize by giving what we can, not only to social justice initiatives and programs, but also to politics. Why? Because if we've got people who are in office who support us, who are you, then we know. Then I mean, I hate to say this, Haji, but I used to think like, okay, someday we will not have anti-Semitism, we will not have racism, we will not have Islamophobia. It's always going to be there, and we are always going to have to fight against it. And if we sit back and rest for a moment, and we have, and look what's happened right now is a result of us sitting back. So we are constantly always going to have to do that. So I always try to look at the glass half full, and the good side out of all this is it's clearly motivating us to stay politically active for not just like this year, but for generations to come.
Excellent. I know you gotta go be somewhere in the next 3 minutes. I'm gonna make this fun and quick so we can end it.
Oh yeah.
You know the Somali dish, am I correct?
Sambusa?
Sambusa. So apart from sambusa, do you know any other dish that you like or that your friends have introduced you?
Oh man, you gotta teach me.
Yes.
You tell me. I'm from New Orleans, Louisiana. I can show you some gumbo and some jambalaya, but I unfortunately I would love to learn how to speak Somali and learn more about Somali food.
Well, we gotta work out on that. We want to teach you Somali. I think it'll be nice to hear Shep speak fluently in Somali, and that can happen. By the way, I know you can. Just to add on quickly, I tried something Jewish one time. I had a lawyer friend that took me to a Jewish country club here in, I think it's around Golden Valley. I don't know where that is. And I ate the corn meat. What is it called? The corn meat sandwich. Is it? Am I right on that? It's
the corned beef sandwich.
Corned beef sandwich. That's correct. Yes. But he didn't tell me is that it's not the healthiest thing that you can eat.
No. Well, look. I mean, I'll tell you real quick because the Jews of Eastern Europe we were oppressed. We were mandated to live in small little villages we called shtetls, and so you learned to eat whatever you could get your hands on, and it was a lot of fat, a lot of sugar, and not the healthiest food.
Right.
So we've come a long way, but I got to tell you, if you want something really good comfort food, matzo ball soup, chicken noodle matzo ball soup. If you have a cold, that like helps you a lot.
At least that's another thing we have in common is that the Jewish community and the Somali community, whenever they get a cold or any sign of cold, they like goat meat soup. So I'm gonna come for you and try that. Thank you very much, Shep. I know our conversation is very short today, but I hope to have you again sometime, better organized, longer, and maybe I can have you and other people around here, maybe in my garage, and we can continue having this conversation about how we can make each other better, about how we can build our neighborhood, about how we can be friends, and how we can really just fight the fight together as people and that have something in common to fight for. Thank you very much for your time.
I'm with you. Haji, you're the best. Mahad Sanid.
You too now. Thank you so much, Shep. Thank you.